Brad's just said he's coming now.
Okay. I'm still playing with the stream. But yeah, should be working fine. Okay.
Oh. Hey everyone, hey Brad. Oleg, if you can make Brad a presenter, maybe.
Yes, sure. Yes, sorry, I'm still waiting. Okay. So, Brad, welcome to the panel. Oh, yeah, I made him a host, but it should be okay too. So, hi everyone. Should we begin? Or let's wait for extra few minutes. Yeah, we'll.
Yeah, maybe we can wait just one more minute. I'm just trying to get my camera on, but it's not.
Okay. So I don't have slide deck for tomorrow. I will just do a quick introduction, and then I will hand it over to you.
Yep.
And while we're here. So Andy, I got the live stream working. So I don't even have to share my screen today. It's nice.
Brad's having trouble with his camera, apparently.
Yeah, I can't turn it on, but I think it's okay. Bivy won't let me do it. It's not the end of the world.
Okay, so just in case you're already live on YouTube, but yeah, we'll start the presentation in a few minutes. Yeah. So. Okay, so let me know when you're ready.
Yep.
Yeah, just.
I promised Brad that I wouldn't. I'd hand across to him and wouldn't speak so much this session. So whenever Brad's ready.
Yeah, and you can hear me right then? Yeah.
So we're waiting for camera, right?
It's not working. Bivy's not letting me do it, so we're just going to have to go without it.
Okay, let's
It's
do
just-
that then.
Yeah.
So then I'll start the recording and let's begin. Hi all, welcome to the Keptn user group. We have a first ever user group meeting in the EPAC and EMEA time zone. Thanks a lot for Brad McCoy and Adam Gardner for joining us. Today we have a presentation about progressive delivery with Keptn. And during this presentation, you will learn a lot how Keptn is used in the field. And after that, please stay on the call. We will have an opportunity to discuss anything about the progressive delivery with Keptn or Keptn in general. So once the official part of the presentation is over, we will have a discussion and everyone can get voice permissions so that we can have a live discussion with everyone. For Q&A during the presentation, please use Q&A. So I will be monitoring Q&A in the chat, and also we have YouTube Live today. So I will be tracking questions there. This is our first attempt with YouTube Live, so just in case, apologies if something goes wrong. Thanks a lot for watching us there too. So what else? Basically nothing. So let me introduce Brad and Adam. And again, thanks a lot for your participation today.
Sure. Adam, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, Adam Gardner. I'm one of the Keptn contributors, I guess. I've written a fair few Keptn services, starting to get involved in the core microservices as well, which is interesting. But yeah, it's a good project. I enjoy it, and the thing I like most about it, obviously, is the community. Everyone's very, very friendly and open to help, and that's the main thing for me. If you start a new project with anything, is trying to get help and trying to get off the ground. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and my name's Brad. I guess I unofficially work with Adam. Working on open source, it's pretty lucky that we both have the same interest and passion. So I find myself talking to Adam sometimes more than other people at my work. So we've been working a lot with Argo CD, Keptn, and Ortelius as well. So sort of how I came about Keptn was we had a use case. Well, I want to have this in my company as well, but we had a use case where there's a CD Foundation project called Ortelius, and they were looking for a GitOps solution, and they needed other tools and capabilities to help them achieve that goal. So essentially what we wanted is we wanted a GitOps solution that you can deploy using the GitOps paradigm. And things that we started to see is that we need a little bit more. So we wanted to do more, testing. The quality gates and remediation were the first things that got us interested in using Keptn as well. And then as we used it more, we realized that it's like a Swiss Army knife for DevOps. So we love the fact that you can bring your own tools, and it's really it's not opinionated, and that was something that really got my interest in it. So yeah, today I think we'll share a lot of the journey that I've had. When you do use GitOps, you go around in circles because you try to stay true to the principles, and normally traditional CI/CD you sort of think in that mindset, so it's hard to get away from that. So first of all, I'd like to show the first step that we had was Argo CD, and it looks like I can't share my screen either. It
becomes a problem.
Camera. Yeah. Do you think I should just quickly leave and come back and see if?
Yeah, let's try.
Yeah.
So usually you just need to get permissions.
Sure.
Yeah. Meanwhile, what I referenced in the chat, I started a meeting notes document. So everyone is welcome to contribute. As you can see from the history, we are not that great about doing these notes, but well, I like doing them, so I'll take care of that, and please feel free to contribute.
While Brad's rejoining, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I may as well describe what he's going to describe. So on the one hand, we've got Argo, and Argo, obviously, we've got a GitHub repo with our code in it. We've got Argo looking at that continuously, basically. So any changes you make in Git are built and reflected in Argo. And then Argo is going to deploy, do the deployment, and then we're going to actually, once the deployment is done, you get, there's Brad, so he can talk through it now. There we go.
You are still muted. Just a second.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So here, the first step of our journey was to learn Argo CD. I'll talk about this more, but it was a good journey in learning because we wanted to use an automated approach to this as well. So what I have is a Devops cluster. So I can get this running in a click of a button. So I'm using Terraform to provision this particular one runs in Azure for Auxiliars, but we can run it in GCP or AWS as well. So what it does is it will run the Terraform code, and then it will, I first started using sealed secrets. So for those that don't know about sealed secrets, it's a way that you can declaratively, I guess, register your secrets in Git without exposing the secret, because you can encrypt it with the cluster. And then after that, we found that that was a bit imperative as well, because you still had to run a CLI command. I think last month, though, they just changed it to integrate with Helm. So I have to check that out. But at the moment, I'm now using external secrets, which is sort of the same. But I can leave some of my secrets in the key vault that Terraform spins up, and then I can reference that in as a external secret, which is a custom user definition. So this here, what you can see is that I can spin up Keptn. So the cool thing about Argo is that once you install Argo, you can actually, Argo can take care of itself. So it can actually change itself and redeploy itself, which is really cool. So the things in this case, I'm using Azure Front Door as an entry point into this particular cluster. The main reason is because if I want to change the DNS records, I have to ask the Linux Foundation, so that can be annoying. So I sort of use Front Door as the interface, and then I don't have to keep bothering or waiting for them to do it. And then that's good for multi-region as well. If once we get a bit more mature, we can have Keptn in multi-region. So here you can see this is in Argo CD, they have a concept of app. So this is actually using a new one called application sets, which is fairly new. We started off running this in the dev branch, but it's recently maturing and it's coming into the release as well for the Argo CD. So this is a good way to learn Keptn as well. So it can be a harder thing to understand. So I found that Argo, I was able to visually see what's actually going on, and that sort of helped me to learn it. So essentially, do you want to talk a little bit about the components, Adam, or do you want me to? I'm happy to.
You can.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so the cool thing, we have the concept of the bridge. So essentially that's the UI where you can run, which we'll show you later on. And we have approval service, lighthouse service. These are standard with the standard Helm chart. And then you can you can. The cool thing is that there's a great community with add-ons, so you can add stuff on like Helm service, JMeter service for testing, and Adam's done a few integrations himself, which are really cool. So he's done Jira service, I think Trivi. There's more coming every day, and you can see here that we actually have the Ortelia service, which we're working on at the moment. So that's written in Golang, and that's essentially, it's used as template, but it's like a fork of the template, and then we can update the logic in the Go to accept cloud events to talk to Keptn. So you can also use things like the webhook service, and I think there's one generic script service, or I don't know what it's called, I can't remember, but essentially, if you don't want to build your own service, then you can use easier ways to talk to other services. So this is, as we said, this is Lighthouse service that's used to sort of interact with tools like Dynatrace, Prometheus, for the quality gates, etc. We have MongoDB data store, the remediation, and you can just see there's a lot of service accounts and the normal stuff here. So one thing when I first started was that I wanted all of this to be I wanted all of this to be shown here as an app, and because I want to use GitHub, so I didn't want to. I was doing a kubectl apply for my ingress, so I then did a pull request to Keptn to add the ingress to the Keptn chart, and then I found that I actually wanted more add-ons as well. So that brought me to a part in my research where I started using customized Helm. So it's quite, not many people know about it, but it's the concept of you can use customize and Helm together, which is very cool. So I can show you. Let's see if I get it up. So not to confuse people too much, but this is using customize here. So you can see here that what I do is in the customization YAML in the base, I can say, I want this version of Keptn, run this Helm chart from here, and then all my values that I want to override, I can put here. So you can see here that I'm running my ingress. So that will essentially be able to connect to the Bridging API. And then also the cool thing is as well that you can have other Helm charts as well. So you're sort of packaging it into the same app. So that's if you have any questions on that, please let me know. It's quite a lot to take on to start with. So so that's sort of my journey and how I'm installing Keptn. So it's button click from spinning up everything in the cloud, the Kubernetes cluster, Keptn, and then at the moment I'm sort of, I guess, watching Thomas as he makes the GitOps operator as well. So once the CID is ready for that, I will simply put that in here as well as a dependency, and then that will install the GitOps operator, and then I can start adding my shipyard file. So Adam can explain the shipyard a little bit better, but what the shipyard is it's a way of defining our workflow in Keptn. So it has the concept of stages, sequences, and tasks. So in this particular instance, what we're looking at now is this is what I want to try for my use case at the moment. So what I want Argo CD to do is when I have let's say a Helm chart, what I've got working as well is something called Argo notifications. So what Argo notifications do is that when I do a PR to the main branch, that's going to start triggering my workflow. So actually Argo will poll Git and it will say, okay, this has changed. Like, let's say, just a simple thing, like I have a new Docker image, with my code. So this Docker image will then, I'll say, okay, I want to go test this in a test environment. So what that's going to do is, because Argo sends an event saying, yes, I've successfully completed, redeploying this code, the new version, then it's going to send back a notification. And that notification is going to be a cloud event to Keptn to trigger a sequence. So we can see here that, see, like the event test delivery finished. But so what I can do is actually trigger that, and then what I want to do is, there's a tool that I'm looking at the moment called TestView, and what that does is it's essentially you can run your Postman API collection, etc. on it. So I'm trying to move testing to the left a little bit, where we can do fully automated testing in the pipelines as well. Well, not a pipeline, but in the workflow. So that will then do the testing. When that's happening, that will progress to the next task, and it will run a quality gate as well. So if the quality gate is good, then Keptn will send a message back. Essentially, this is the part that I'm sort of running at the moment, but it's probably going to look something like, that's going to then commit to the values.yaml file for the next environment. So let's say UAT, and so this is where that progressive delivery is coming from, what we want. So that will essentially, because we want to keep with the GitOps principles as well, essentially Ortelius is going to catalog that metadata, and then it's going to say, yes, we've done true testing. It's automated testing in the quality gate. So that's going to say, okay, that's good for the next environment, and then it will proceed. It will do the commit, and then Argo will pick it up, and then it will go to the next sequence as well. So that's essentially what we're working on at the moment. The reason I'm using the Argo notification service, I could use Argo rollouts, but we're also thinking that a service mesh would do that capability as well. So we're installing Linkerd at the moment to get those different deployment strategies. So I guess at the moment we're testing a lot of different things, and this is the fun part of researching, is you can plug tools, plug and play where you want. So at the moment, I'm going to try with Linkerd for a service mesh for my deployment strategy, and then I can try Argo rollouts as well. There's actually a tutorial on Keptn and Argo rollouts as well on the keptn.sh website, I believe. So quite a lot going on there. Did you want to comment on any of that,
Adam? Yeah, so if you could just pull up, if you could just scroll down in Argo to some of the services. I just want to kind of highlight, because we've got quite a few new faces on the call who are probably new.
Yeah. It's I want to try and, I know this is a lot to take in, but yeah, maybe we can go back to basics a little bit.
Yeah. So you can see there we've got the configuration service, which is one of the core Keptn microservices. There's the Helm service, the JMeter service, and so on. And as Brad says, you can write your own services. So if there is a tool out there that you like, you can bring that tool. That's one of the core things about Keptn, is that it's not opinionated in what tooling it uses. So how this works is, if you could flick to the shipyard, Brad.
Sure.
So you define your shipyard, and that's basically your blueprint of what your world looks like to Keptn. And now what actually happens behind the scenes is that cloud events are generated for this automatically for you behind the scenes. So for example, you as a human, or another tool, in this case, we're taking Argo, and Argo is doing its thing and notifying Keptn. And what Argo will do is actually trigger the sequence there. So you can see on line 9, there's the delivery sequence in the test stage. And then, so that's the cloud event that we fire in to tell Keptn to start its workflow. Keptn then goes away and says, okay, I need to trigger the delivery sequence. What do I do? Well, I need to trigger the deployment task on line 11. So after you've triggered the sequence, Keptn is going to manage and orchestrate the rest for you. Now, Brad is going to have a tool listening for that deployment triggered cloud event that Keptn is going to generate and send out. So that tool, that's up to Brad. He can bring whatever tool he wants. As soon as that tool finishes, it's going to signal back to Keptn to say, I've done the deployment, it's finished, and here's some results. And then Keptn says, okay, I know the deployment is now finished because this tool has told me. Now I'm going to, and the process repeats. So Keptn generates that release event, that cloud event, and some other tool listens for that event, and so on and so forth. So that's what I wanted to try and map together, is the idea of the Keptn services and the shipyard and how they kind of fit together. And notice we're not actually mentioning tooling in here. We're not saying do a deployment with tool X. And that's deliberate because those services are hot swappable. So if you don't like the tool that you use for deployment, if a new tool comes along tomorrow, you can just switch out that Keptn service and everything else about your environment stays the same. So we can, as we're experimenting with this, Brad and I can really just swap tools and see which one is the best fit for his workflow. And you can have different tools responding in different environments. So we could have TestCube responding in the test environment. We could have JMeter responding in the UAT environment, if that's what was wanted. So that's all I want to try and point out.
That's a good point, because, like, for example, in UAT, you might have more sort of like-for-like production data, so it would make more sense to run JMeter just in UAT, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in test, because test is more traditionally, sort of older than the UAT environment. So yeah, and because we're very much in the research phase, it is a great, it is good that we can swap tools out as we see what's the best way, because once you go down this journey of GitOps, it does get confusing fast, and you just have to keep experimenting different ways and see what works, and having that freedom to do that is great.
Do you want to talk a little bit, Brad, about the plan for kind of after deployment? So if the sort of rollback that we've got planned?
For the remediation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I haven't done much with the remediation yet, but I can imagine that once, for starters, I'll use Dynatrace to get this sort of workflow working, because it's just easier. And once, to my understanding, once Dynatrace was in the problem event, then my remediation sequence will then, I guess in a way, it's probably got to do another git commit as well, because an Argo would pick that up. So maybe it depends on once we start testing what the actual problems might be, then we can either, probably a traditional one would be scaling. So, obviously auto scaling these days would sort of take care of that. You should be setting your clusters up with horizontal vertical scaling, but let's pretend that scaling was an issue. It's a Black Friday, we're a retailer, we're getting smashed. Maybe a remediation would just be to simply scale up. So that would do a git commit back to the prod file and then scale that up, and Argo would pick that up and do it straight away. And then it would sort of go in that remediation loop. I actually haven't got to that.
Would be to obviously between these stages. So that's the other thing I didn't mention, is these sequences by default they're standalone. So you ask Keptn to run a sequence, it will run to the end. But what Brad has actually got here on line 18 is you can chain sequences. So basically he's saying whenever the delivery sequence finishes in the test stage, I'm going to start the delivery sequence in the UAT stage. So he's chained those two together. So it starts to look a little bit like a pipeline, but remember, we're not actually building tooling integrations in this part. So my first thought there would be, as soon as we finish the prod delivery, we actually trigger a final quality gate after, say, 15 minutes in prod, using the same metrics that we have all the way through. And if that quality gate fails, then we know the deployment, for whatever reason, has gone wrong. So we can either, as you say, do whatever. We can scale up, we can roll back, we can flick to a static version of the website in the worst case. We can. It's flexible to what we do, but my first thought would be run a final quality gate after the deployment, after the prod.
I recently watched Andy and I think his name is Daniel from Crossplane, one of their talks on using Keptn and Crossplane as possibly, the concept of a remediation task with, if Azure was down, then to using Crossplane. If people don't know what Crossplane is, it's essentially infrastructure as code declared in Kubernetes manifest files that's using GitOps as well. So I want to start experimenting with Crossplane as well and doing remediation for that to, let's say, I don't know, some service from Azure goes down, then we can then trigger remediation to go spin everything up and go to AWS. Or my next task as well is, because this is the Devops cluster, I want to use cluster API. So for my environments, I want to be able to use, GitOps to be able to spin up my other clusters, my environment clusters as well. So there's lots, the possibilities in this of all the cool things that we can do. It's good for DR as well, so disaster recovery. There's a lot of really good benefits out of GitOps and using Keptn as well.
There is a question from Dmitry. How do you integrate the detailed logging of the validation tests with Keptn dashboard?
Sorry, how do you integrate the logging?
Logging of validation tests with Keptn dashboard.
Okay.
It would be nice to see how it looks like on Keptn side, because Keptn also has its own web UI, but we haven't touched it yet.
Sure. Adam, would you like to share your screen for that? Go on mute as well.
And I don't have the share screen button, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Let me try and stop sharing and see if it gives it to you.
There we go.
Yeah. Yours will be better because it's a more mature environment, I guess. Yeah, it was we probably should have done the UI first because it's a little bit easier to understand. But I guess that demo was the GitOps and how we can declare the spin up Argo Keptn and the apps inside it.
You see that? So this is basically the UI that you get, and I remember all of the output is driven by cloud events now. You get the raw cloud events. Obviously, there is an API behind all of this that you can interrogate to retrieve the cloud events, but of course they are also available in the UI. But the UI makes it nice and easy. So the way the quality gate works, you obviously give it your service level indicators, which are effectively the metrics that you want to look at. So in this case, we're looking at authentication, the load time of the home page and the store booking page in this case. And then you give it some thresholds or your service level objectives. So you can see here that I'm saying, okay, if my authentication endpoint is less than 10 milliseconds, responds in less than 10 milliseconds, and it's within 20% of a previous set of tests, then it's a pass criteria. If it is not a pass criteria, then it may be a warning criteria, and this one is less than 20 milliseconds. And then obviously if it's anything above the warning criteria, then it's a fail for that individual metric. So every single metric gets its own score. And then those scores are summed together to give you this score here, which is the overall result of the quality gate. So in this case, all of my metrics were green. They all passed. So my quality gate as a whole passes. So if you think about Brad's workflow, he's got Argo, he's got the quality gate at the end. This is the kind of output he would get. And then he would get a decision back from Keptn to say, is that artifact, is that thing that we've just deployed, not only do the liveness and the readiness probes and the pod spins up, but actually is the performance of this acceptable? Can users make a booking? Can they do what they're actually wanting to do on the website or the API endpoint? And this can be, these metrics can be anything. They can be business relevant. They can be security vulnerabilities. To Keptn doesn't really care. It's a metric that you are interested in. So you get a result, and we can use that result to decide what we do. So if we could use that to automatically migrate or progress the artifact into the following stage, or we can just use it as a notification. Just send a message into Slack to say, I've run a quality gate in UAT and it passed. So I'm guessing what you're going to do, Brad, is possibly have it automated up to prod, and then you might have maybe a manual approval just before prod. And there is actually, I don't know if you have it installed in your Argo, but there is an approval service. And what happens there, when you run a sequence, you'll get a nice button in the Keptn UI that says, yes, the quality gate passed, but you've asked me, even if it passes, to give a human approval. And someone's got to log in and actually click, approve before it'll go to production. There's that kind of final safety check. So that, obviously, if you want true end-to-end automation, you just don't use that service and you just let Keptn, do its thing and rely on the quality gate. But if you want the human element, that's fine too.
I guess just touching on that with the metrics, Argo will let you output metrics to Grafana as well. So it would be quite cool for, to measure your success in DevOps, things we care about, like lead time, mean time to restore. It would be really cool to capture all of that stuff as well, and then show that in Grafana, your DevOps metrics, and then you can see how you're improving, where you and just really how successful that is. So that would be a cool one to look at down the line as we mature the solution as well.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? And how do you troubleshoot the failed indicators? No, I've stopped sharing, but hopefully you can remember the screen. Basically, you get the so you're going to have a metric backend behind this. You're going to have Dynatrace or Prometheus or Datadog or Splunk or wherever you're pulling your metrics from, and obviously you've got the metric, and you know how you define those because it's defined as code in an SLI, a YAML file. So you can easily jump into whatever tool you're using and say, aha, my authentication endpoint was too high, for example.
And you've done custom ones recently as well, haven't you?
Right. Maybe just to clarify my question here, the integration with Grafana is pretty missing here. So the click on a red indicator would ideally bring you to the Grafana dashboard or Grafana plugin within the Keptn to see the metric over time and to be able to troubleshoot more easily. Because right now, what you are saying, you have a different implementation for troubleshooting using Grafana, where you can deep dive into specific behavior, and you have here just a global indication.
So what you do get, I know what you're saying. It might not be the whole way, but you do get a hit. I don't have a lot of history in this quality gate, unfortunately. But if you flick across to the chart, you do get a history of each evaluation. You get a history of their the response time metrics within Keptn. But yes, I get that if you have a more fully featured tool at the back of this, like Dynatrace, where you could drill into the pure paths, that would be a nice enhancement.
Hey, folks, can I quickly add something to this? This is Andy. Because we had a similar discussion yesterday in our user group meeting with Raiffeisen Software, where they have shown the automated validation of their online banking software. And what we had the same discussion, and what we proposed, and I already gave that feedback to the Keptn team, especially Johannes, that an extension to make this possible, the drill down from the heat map to a dashboard, would be that the SLI provider should not only return the actual value of each metric that is queried, but also a link to, let's say, if this is a metric coming from Prometheus, then it could return a link to a Grafana dashboard. If the metric comes from Dynatrace and the metric comes from a PurePath, from our distributed trace, it could also return a link to the PurePath dashboard directly for that distributed trace. So the idea was that to discuss an extension to the SLI provider, that it not only returns a value, but also a link to then do the troubleshooting or the deep dive.
That would be cool.
Yeah, great idea.
Do we have any
Thanks,
other
Andy.
questions as well? Like, there's no question too basic as well. If there's any folks that are using it for the first time and have some questions, feel free to ask as well.
So, yeah, if you have any questions,
and I guess a question for Andy: what do you think about this so far? Like, the research. And I know there's so many different ways you can go, but what are your thoughts on it?
Can you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, just what are your thoughts on what we sort of presented, what we're trying to do at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we can do to let the community understand and make it easier for them to, really get Keptn running and really embed it into their ecosystem. I think this is important. The other thing we need to do, and I think this is all of our duty, is to make sure that people understand what's the role of Keptn in combination with all the other tools, because we all know that there are so many tools that are trying to do similar things. So we need to really come out with some best practices on, what's the role in your case of Argo CD, what's the role of Keptn, what's the role of Tekton, what's the role of Jenkins. I think this is still something where people are maybe also a little bit, confused. And I think this is why it's great that people like you're actually showing best practices on how to combine these tools and then really use the individual tools for their strengths. For me, the strength of Keptn, and that's what I hear a lot, is the automated analysis based on SLOs, the data-driven aspect of orchestration, the loosely coupling of all of your tools to really automate and orchestrate your sequences. I think these are the real strengths. Yeah, no, but what you're doing here is great, right? I mean, I think that's the right way forward. Also, I'm not sure if you have followed all of the comments in the chat when you were showing your customized templates. Christian was also highlighting that then don't forget about the new Helm chart repo. That's important. I think you're still pulling it from Google from the Google artifact store. So check that out as well.
Okay, sure. Thanks for that. Yeah, I didn't see that.
May I have a theoretical question, more for brainstorming? So when you are using Argo, maybe, I don't know, you can use Argo rollouts to have blue-green deployments or canary deployments, and you can validate a SLI before it was actually be visible to the customer. Are you using this this option, this alternative? And another question, in case you're not using that, it could be what SLI is broken not because of deployment. It could be so many external causes of the failure, environment based, configuration based, whatever, but not delivered bytes. How to actually distill what is part of the deployment and what is reflected because of other dependencies.
That's a very good question, and that's actually the phase that we're in at the moment. So we are testing with Argo rollouts and also comparing it to see like what I'm confused about at the moment and you know researching to understand is Argo rollouts the same as like a service mesh, you know, to give that deployment strategy capability. So I don't really have the answer to that, but I'll have a play around as well. And I think that's a really good discussion to have because I know that a lot of folks have done the Keptn Argo rollouts as well. So I would actually be interested to see a demo of that myself. But I think that's a really good topic. And Andy, have you seen that as well in the ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks for that. And I also just posted 2 links in the chat as well. So there's one with my initial tutorial on Argo rollouts, and then another one from a Keptn user group from one of our users that is using Argo rollouts. And to that theoretical discussion, I think it is not a theoretical, it's a practical thing, right? Because in the end, I exactly think that Keptn is perfect for that because you can use Argo rollouts to deploy a new canary or whatever you want. Yeah, let's call it a canary. You deploy it. You then run tests against the new canary, and then based on that, really decide whether you want to roll it out to a larger user base. Or also blue-green is another, again, perfect. You're using a blue-green deployment, you then run tests against the new deployment that is not yet exposed to the outside world, then use the SLOs, the automated SLO validation, to then figure out, do we meet all of our criteria? And if so, then we make the switch and our end users can also access that app. So I think this is perfect, and I believe, and Dimitri, if I understood your question correctly, this should all be part of the rollout process, right? This is part of the release process, is really validating until end users can safely use it. That means for me, a perfect Keptn sequence not only switches between blue and green, so deploys, tests, then switches if everything good, but then keeps validating. So things that I have seen is that people are, after the actual deployment, after the switch to the live version, then let's say after 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, do additional SLO validations to make sure that the live system is also running. And obviously, this approach depends on the maturity of your observability platform. If you're basing it on, let's say, pure metrics, then I think using Keptn's SLO validation is great after 10 minutes, after 20, after 30, after an hour, to constantly validate, are we still within our thresholds? If you have, let's say, other observability platforms that have automated, anomaly detection, then you can also use those. I mean, obviously, I'm biased with Dynatrace, so our customers are typically using Dynatrace to take care of monitoring production, and then it tells you in case something is wrong after an hour, after 2 hours. This could then trigger a remediation action. So.
Correct, but when you are using exactly the flow you just described, you are at risk of false positives. And false positives, so you executed the validation on a blue version, but it's not yet been exposed to the customer, and it's red, but it's red not because of the delivery, but because of environmental settings. So how to distill that from real failures versus unreal failures? So for instance, currently we are experimenting with in that case to execute the same SLI on a current version, on a green version, and to disable, to skip failed KPIs, SLIs.
Mm-hmm. I'm still processing the scenario you just painted. So if something is failing because of an environment issue, does this then mean you still have a problem, right? I mean, you would not then.
But why not to allow the deployment? Let's say the latency you set is beyond the 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Of it's a trivial case. You have an API, you're accessing API, and the USLI is below 2 seconds. And it's currently above. It's 3 seconds now, but it's the same for the green version and the blue version. And the reason of that is because of the database or data store accessibility. So why, if you're using a blue-green strategy, then failure on SLI means you're not promoting.
Now I understand your point. Yeah, I think the two answers to this question. The one is, right, you can always have a manual override. I think you can obviously have a human being looking at it and say, hey, it's still good because we know we have a current ongoing issues and this won't be fixed. This is also something that came up yesterday in the Raiffeisen call, where they said they would love to have the option to override a result human because they know of certain things that the tool doesn't know. And the second thing is, remember, in Keptn, SLOs can not only be defined based on static thresholds, like your 2-second example, but you can also say, I want to make sure that I'm not getting worse than what's currently in production. So you can also specify relative SLOs. So relative means I am comparing my current value with my last deployment that I had. And I want to make sure that I'm not getting worse than 10%, 20%. So I think these are two options. Exactly, and he's just showing it now.
Correct, but in that concrete example, you need to check with not the previous deployment, but with twin version, a base version, whatever, green version, and to make this.
Exactly. I mean, I think in practice, the previous deployment, the previous evaluation you have done is actually what is currently the green version. So I think this should work. What we also know, though, and this has also been discussed with the Keptn community, is how we can really extend our SLO comparison capabilities to say either compare with a certain baseline, with a certain, let's say, golden standard, or also compare two systems that are currently running in parallel, meaning not comparing it with the previous build, but pulling the data from, as you said, from blue and then from green, and then compare those. I mean, that's also something that we have already discussed.
Yeah, and we are currently experimenting with this configuration exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Once it's ready, I will share the results.
Oh, nice. That'll be interesting.
I'm still on mute. One other thing I wanted to quickly mention, of course, you can define SLIs, but you don't have to necessarily give them criteria. So they can be reported in this report effectively, but you're just getting the values. So you don't want them to affect the output or the pass or fail. If you just want them alongside in the report, that could be one other solution.
So basically, it gives you just monitoring dashboard. So you don't have auto remediation, you don't have alerts. But if you want to observe particular metrics on the Keptn dashboards, you would get it right away. This feature. Nice to know. Okay, so any other questions, comments? I think that we basically ran out of questions in the chat, etc. So I will grant presentation permissions for everyone. So if you want to comment and just share your feedback about the session, about your use cases for Keptn, please go ahead. And yeah. So you need to just accept the invitation if you want to speak or just comment in the chat. I will wait. Yeah, thanks a lot to Brad and Adam for joining and sharing the experiences and this use case, because using Keptn with Argon CD for progressive delivery is one of the hot areas. We actually have tutorials for that on tutorials.keptn.sh. Some of the tutorials need to be updated to the recent Keptn version because there were some changes in services, in structures, and it's somewhere on our list, but yeah, it's a really important topic and we need to keep maintaining that. And maybe just a generic question to you, what else are you missing in Keptn for your setups related to progressive delivery or not?
Just really interested in the GitOps operator that will be eventually coming.
Yeah, for GitOps operator, we already have a POC available. So I will share the link in the chat to
I have that
Keptn
actually.
enhancement.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you already evaluated it, and how did it work for you?
I've been talking to Thomas about it. He's been really good. So I've just been trying to get past my next research phases, just with the rollouts. I have to get that part done, and then it will be a little bit more mature as well. So then I'm planning to adopt it probably next month.
Mm-hmm.
But so far so good.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, all of us are looking forward to see how this story evolves, because yeah, for me it was always seemed quite strange that Keptn is basically a GitOps management tool, but you weren't able to efficiently manage Keptn via GitOps. Well, you could do it before, but it would require some tricks. But now with operators, I think it becomes available right away. Plus, since you will have full access to CRDs, to specifications, you basically can integrate Keptn management to any management flow you have. So yeah, it sounds really exciting. Mm-hmm. And anything else you would like to see?
No, maybe just some other contributors coming through the ranks. You know, some good first issues, more good first issues for the folks starting off.
We are working on that. Well, for real. So we actually started working on contributing guidelines, extending them, removing some obstacles. Because, for example, maybe it's my personal opinion, but I hated DCO, and I'm really looking forward to getting rid of it somehow. And other boundary, other obstacles, we also need to improve them. So I heard that, for example, Adam recently created a POC for Keptn and Docker. Maybe it could be also used as a kind of development platform, because one of the feedback we got from the field that if you want to develop Keptn, you need something like 64 gigs recent hardware, which is still a challenge for many people. So I think that it would be also one of the opportunities for onboard more contributors. And well, newcomer friendly issues, that's for sure. We started creating some around documentation, but we also need to work on Keptn. And currently there are infinite opportunities to contribute on the services side. Because we have webhook service, we have job executor service, which are basically generic automation frameworks. You can just take one of these services and quickly create your integration, write some documentation based on them. Also, there are easy keys for creating full-featured services, for example, in Golang, and you can do that as well. So I think it would be one of the areas for contributions these days, and also it would be nice to get it streamlined. So if you want to contribute, just yesterday we started a new channel on Slack called Keptn Contributing. So if you're just interested to start, do not know where to start, use this channel to reach out, and we will be happy to help.
Okay. I just realized we have the same color t-shirt. Okay, well, yeah, thanks everybody. And if you want to know more about Customize Helm or how we've done that as well, please reach out to us. More than happy to show you as well.
Absolutely. Brad and I are both in Australia, so I'm taking a lot of, obviously everyone on here is in the same region, so feel free to reach out on the Keptn Slack. We'll help. And yeah, definitely, if there are tools that you like that aren't kind of supported by Keptn at the moment, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll guide you through the best way. There are a couple of options to contribute. So yeah, happy to help.
Yeah, I guess Adam holds the record of the number of integrations, because recently he created E50 integration and those. What was the second integration?
Zapier.
Zapier, yes. And it basically adds something like 3,000 integrations right away to Keptn if you just submit a proper webhook.
That's quite cool, actually, Adam.
I cheated a little bit there. I got my count up to 3,000 with one integration.
Well, it's a cloud-native world, interoperability for the win. And actually, I think that Keptn is a great engine for that, because it was designed for orchestration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thanks, everyone. Yeah, great presentation. Yeah, we had a first broadcast, so basically recording will be available right away, first time. Let's see how it works. And yeah, thanks, Brad. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, and thanks a lot for all your contributions to the community and to the project.
No problem. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. See you next time.
Yeah. Thanks all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Cheers.